So, dear listeners, now that we know how Sayashreya was born out of that one heartfelt question of that little 5-year-old child in the Syrian border, where she asked, "Do you also give food to children like us in India?" That one heartfelt question gave birth to this organization, which is a testament to the power of pure selfless love. So, dear listeners, today let us delve deep into the first ever project that Sayashreya took up, the first service project, Breakfast Seva. While we continued to share our experiences from the Seva that happened in the Syrian border and discussed the precious life lessons that lay in each one of them, especially the lessons that we learned from that one heartfelt question, a need was felt among all the people who were there to come up and do something concrete. Back then, we weren't even registered formally as an organization. We were just a small group of people, and Seva would happen, but it would be a weekly activity or a monthly activity where we would go and serve food and distribute clothes to a few hundred people, and then for rest of the week or rest of the month, it would all be forgotten. So there came this point when we said, no, we should actually go out and do something that would carry on a day-to-day basis. And that is when our volunteers decided to visit a slum not too far from where we lived and decided to do something. We remember when we went there that morning, or rather that afternoon, we saw this child lying on a blue tarpaulin. A few elders were around, the child's parents were there, and when we went closer to the child who was asleep, we could hear the stomach growl. The child was fast asleep, and we asked the parents what was the matter, and the parents said that the child had not eaten that morning, and also the previous day the child had nothing to eat, and as a result the child couldn't get up and go to school, and the parents were still figuring out about what they could do. So it was then that we found that there were 50 such children living in that slum, along with their parents, their grandparents, their extended families, all in those shanties in that area. And it was not like this place was away from Bangalore. It was in the heart of Bangalore, not too far from the old airport. So we decided to start serving breakfast every day morning to these children. And the reason why we did that was the parents actually said that many of their children there, among the 50 of them, those who would go to school, when the prayers would start, many of them would end up even fainting. Some of them couldn't focus in their classrooms because their stomachs were empty and they couldn't pay attention. And that led us to thinking, why not just start serving breakfast every day to 50 children? Nothing big, just simple but tasty breakfast every morning. So we took that up and started cooking breakfast every day morning for these 50 children and started visiting the slum on a day-to-day basis every morning. But we didn't want the activity to just be about serving food. So we started helping the children groom. Many of these children would have to have bath in the open. It would be difficult, especially for girl children. And even their parents had to go through the same plight, unfortunately. As these children started eating breakfast every morning, going nicely dressed to school, when they would come back, our volunteers started tutoring these children in basic English, mathematics, Kannada, whatever they needed for their school, and also started telling these children the things that matter the most in life, such as being self-confident, walking with your chest out, being bold and courageous. And somehow the impact was very visible. Within hardly 3 months, the principal from the school came over to the slum and said, there is something that you're doing to these children. There is some magic. So why don't you just spread the magic to the whole of the school instead of just these 50 children? Because I see that these children were hardly interested. They could not focus and study. They were not playing. They were not even interacting. And here today, some of them have even come up with science experiments, which is a shock to me personally. So she said, why don't you actually come out and do something for the whole school? While we were thinking on how do we reply, one of our main volunteers, who happens to be my mother, she came out and said, Madam, we will come to your school from tomorrow. You don't worry, we will take care. And somehow, before we knew it, the whole school, that one school with 130 children, was under our wings. And we started working each day, going to the schools, serving these students. The teachers would take part in the serving. And very soon, all we would have to do is take the food, and the children were serving their own brothers and sisters there. And as this impact became bigger, the whole school had grown leaps and bounds, and for the first time in many years there were no dropouts. But as all these developments were taking place, and just as we felt that we were doing something concrete, that's when one of the toughest challenges that we faced came about. And that was where the slum where these 50 children lived, that slum was raised one afternoon when these children were at school. And the reason why that happened was that their parents could not afford to pay the high rent that their landlord was asking them to pay. Despite not having the most basic facilities that one needs, there wasn't even a bathroom in that slum. There was not even a single toilet. And despite all of these things, the slum would be dirty, there would be garbage around, but still the rent would keep going up every year. And there came this point when the parents, who were daily wage laborers, some of them were unemployed, looking for work, they could not afford to pay this time around, and the slum was raised. So when we reached there that evening, we see this boy sitting on the footpath with a book in his hand, using the headlights of the vehicle coming in front of him. He was sitting and preparing for his test the next day. And the moment he saw a couple of us, he came running, he hugged us, he cried and he said, Nodi Anna, ella ordagbitidare, yenu illa manenalli. Meaning, brother, they have literally broken everything. We don't have anything left in our home. He said, how am I supposed to prepare for my test tomorrow? My parents have not eaten. And as this was going on, all the children, those 50 of them, they came running to us, and their parents came over, and we immediately arranged for something to eat, and then we started looking for a place to stay. And long story short, in a week's time, all of these children and their parents moved to small one-bedroom homes. Just a toilet, a bedroom, some of the most basic facilities, very small homes, but they did that. And as we got to know that each one is slowly moving, we were naturally curious to know how they managed to pay the rent, how did they manage to pay the advance. So we went up to them and we got them together and asked, why didn't you tell us, we could have done something for you. And then one of the parents, the father, stepped up and he said, Sir, all these days you have been telling us that give the right ambience for your children to study, make sure that their home is good, make sure that the children have a toilet, and this is the least that we can do for all the efforts that you're taking. Naturally, we were moved to tears. What these parents did during those times naturally moved us beyond words. Some of them had sold their only ornaments. Some of the mothers had sold their bangles, their Mangal Sutras even, in some cases. And naturally, it moved us to tears, but what moved us even more was the statement that father made, that we had never realized the impact that our words were creating on them. Each day, our elder volunteers would go to the slum, sit with the children's parents, find out what their needs were, make sure that there was harmony at home. For example, some of the children, their parents, their father would come home drunk because he was frustrated, he was angry, and he would take it out on the mother, the child, and the child would have to endure all that trauma and still manage to go to school, which was next to impossible. So what we did was found work for those who did not have work. We networked them with masons and carpenters and plumbers whom we knew. Some of them, we pulled them to other jobs, other daily wage jobs which were more secure and which allowed them to save some money and take care of their family. And so what happened over time, was that there was no parent who was not having work to do, and even though both the parents had to work to get food on the plate, the mothers would go at 6 in the morning to work. They would come back home at around 8 after working in 20 homes and having one meal during that process. So the owners naturally, we felt that it is our responsibility to take care of those children, and by the time the parents would come home, we would be there tutoring those children, and the mother would come and be able to spend quality time with the child. So this is what we wanted to create, harmony at home, which led to improving the child's journey. So this impact that our Seva had created moved us a lot. So what happened after these children moved into these homes was that everybody around, people from other slums or other areas, started saying, the word naturally spreads, that there is some remarkable work happening. There is this small organization doing some amazing work. So why don't we go and request them? And very soon, before we knew, we had 2-3 other schools come to us and ask us for help. And before we knew it, dear listeners, one school became 2, 2 became 3, 3 became 4, 4 became 5, and before we knew it, we were serving thousands of these children every day. But the most beautiful part here is that we were also blessed with more and more volunteers who could give their time and their love and their care to all these families. So this was the first Seva that we started, and naturally it is most dear to our hearts because this has these little kids who are basically our very own heartbeat. They are the future of the world, and they deserve the best future. And our only wish for them is that they aim high and they soar high with the wings that they have. And as long as they get the right guidance, they will end up achieving that. So now, let us listen from one of these little gems, Basavaraj. We caught him on his way to school. He was running to his school and we caught him, and he shared his experience with Sai Aashraya's Breakfast Seva. And here it is.
ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಬಸವರಾಜ. ನಾನು 7ನೇ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಓದುತ್ತಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ನನ್ನ ಶಾಲೆಯ ಹೆಸರು GS ಕೋನೆ ನಾಗರಾರ. ನಾನು ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲಲ್ಲಿ ಓದುತ್ತಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ನಾನು ಶೆಡ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಕೆಲವು ಟೀಮ್ ಬಂದು ನಮಗೆ ಡೈಲಿ ತಿಂಡಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ದೋಸೆ, ಇಡ್ಲಿ, ವಡೆ, ಸಾಂಬಾರು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಚಾಕ್ಲೇಟ್ಸು, ಬಾಳೆಹಣ್ಣು, ಹಾಲು ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕೆಲವು ಹಬ್ಬಗಳು ಬಂದಾಗ ಯುಗಾದಿಗೆ ಬೇವು ಬೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಂಕ್ರಾಂತಿ ಬಂದಾಗ ಕಬ್ಬು ಬೆಲ್ಲ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ರಿಸ್ಮಸ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಮನೆಗೆ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಡ್ರಾಯಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಫಸ್ಟು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದಿನ ಶನಿವಾರದ ಹೊತ್ತು ಇದು ಮೆಡಿಕಲ್ಗೆ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡೋದಾಗ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರು ಹುಡುಗಿಗೆ ಏನೇನು ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರೆಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು, ಸಿರಪ್ಪು ಮಾತ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಲಾಸ್ಟಿಗೆ ಊಟ, ಚಾಕ್ಲೇಟ್ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬಟ್ಟೆಗಳನ್ನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು, ಶೂ, ಬ್ಯಾಗು, ಬಟ್ಟೆ, ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ಕೂಲಿಗೆ ಇವಾಗ ಶೆಡ್ಡಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೆ ನಾನು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ರೂಮಿಗೆ ಬಂದೆ. ನನಗೆ ಟಾಯ್ಲೆಟ್ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಶೆಡ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವಾಗ ರೂಮಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಟಾಯ್ಲೆಟ್ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ. ಇವಾಗ ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ ತಿಂಡಿ ಕೊಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ದೈಹಿಕ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇದೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಓದೋಕ್ಕೆ ಅನುಕೂಲವಾಗ್ತಿದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಕೂಲಲ್ಲಿ ಒಟ್ಟು 140 ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ತಿಂಡಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಡೈಲಿ ಬಾದಾಮಿ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಹಾಲು, ಬಾದಾಮಿ, ಬಿಸ್ಕೆಟ್ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದ್ರ ತಿಂದೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದಿದೆ. ನಾನು ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ನನಗೆ ಹೇಳೋಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೇನೆ, ನಾನು ಅವ್ರಂಗೆ ಮುಂದೆ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡುತ್ತೇನೆ.
ಸಾಯಿ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸದಸ್ಯರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕರಿಸುತ್ತಾ, ನಾನು GMPS ವಿಮಾನಪುರ ಶಾಲೆಯಿಂದ ಲತಾ ಅಂತ ಟೀಚರ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ನಮ್ಮ ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಸಾಯಿ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ವತಿಯಿಂದ 2017-18ರಿಂದ ತಿಂಡಿ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಬೆಳಗಿನ ಉಪಹಾರನ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಶಾಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ತಿಂಡಿ ತಿಂದು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಪೇರೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ 6 ಗಂಟೆಗೇ ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡೋರು ಇರ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಯಾರೂ ತಿಂಡಿ ತಿಂದು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಒಮ್ಮೆ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ನವ್ರನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ತಿಂಡಿ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅವರು ತಿಂಡಿ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳೂ 8:30 ಶಾಲೆ ಬರೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಪ್ರೇಯರಿಗೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಮಗುನೂ ಇರ್ತಾಯಿತ್ತು. ಮತ್ತು ಅವ್ರು ತಿಂಡಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಕೂರಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸಾಯಿಬಾಬಾದೊಂದು ಪ್ರೇಯರ್ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಅದನ್ನು ಹೇಳೋದನ್ನು ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಶಿಸ್ತಿನಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೈ ಮುಗಿದು ಆ ಪ್ರೇಯರನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಒಂದು ಡಿಸಿಪ್ಲಿನ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಫಾಲೋ ಆಗ್ತಾಯಿತ್ತು. ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ತಿಂಡಿನಲ್ಲೂ ಸುಮಾರು ವೆರೈಟೀಸನ್ನು ಅವರು ಕೊಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಅಂದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಟಮಿನು, ಪ್ರೋಟೀನು, ಮಿನರಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲದೂ ಸಿಗಬೇಕು. ಅಂದರೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗಿನ ಉಪಹಾರ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಥರದ ವಿಟಮಿನ್ಸು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಮೈಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅದೇ ಥರ ತಿಂಡಿನ ಅವರು ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಅದರಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಶಾಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ದಾಖಲಾತಿನೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಯಿತು. ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೇ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಆರೋಗ್ಯವಾಗಿರ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತು ನಾವು ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಲವಲವಿಕೆಯಿಂದ ಪಾಠನ ಕೇಳ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಏಕೆಂದರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಮನುಷ್ಯನಿಗೆ ಫಸ್ಟು ಊಟ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಊಟನೇ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇನು ಬರದೇ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಪಾಠ ಕೇಳೋಕ್ಕೆ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟೇ ಇರ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಸಾಯಿ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ತಿಂಡಿ ಬರೋಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಓದಿನಲ್ಲೂ ತುಂಬ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಆದರು. ಅವರ ಹೆಲ್ತು ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೇ ಶಾಲೆನೂ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಶಾಲೆ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಂಥ ಸಾಯಿ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಶಾಲಾ ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಧನ್ಯವಾದನ ಅರ್ಪಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
So that, dear listeners, was Basavaraj summing up everything that Sayashreya stands for and the crux of this organization, which is love. So, as a holistic project, it was not just serving breakfast. We could also look after the health of these children, the health of their parents, their extended families. So we started covering more and more areas in and around Bangalore, and that is how this beautiful Seva is expanded day by day. And we are sure that in the future, in the years to come, there will be many more such children who will become a part of this project and who will grow up to be model citizens one day.